Because I think, look, I think it's really important that everybody, obviously, you should follow every single protocol they're telling you to follow. Disinfecting, hand washing, all of that. That's incredibly important. I don't think panic is a useful emotion, and I don't think it's positive for our politics. So even as we are giving into anxiety in this office, I think it's important to, you know, keep a level head and, you know, just hold that duality. We're not going into, you know, head in the sand Trumpism, and we're also should not be having an ultra panic either. And also that, frankly, these are problems that have been emerging for decades. You go back to the Reagan era and you start gutting the social safety net, you start gutting the public health infrastructure. This is what it leads to, guys. It's not terribly complicated. If President Obama was in office, I have no doubt, and it would be utterly foolish to deny, that the response would be more effective and more responsible, obviously.
Lives would be saved.
Lives would be saved, and lives matter. So, absolutely. And this would still be a serious crisis because we do not have the public health infrastructure in the United States that, even with incredible nurses and doctors and scientists and people doing and emergency responders and tech and a lot of people in health infrastructure who are talented, committed people doing serious work, some good people in various bureaucracies and so on. And even if you had an administration that was not fully committed to this market fantasy life, they're committed enough, and the bipartisan project has been enough, that we would be in a serious problem right now. And this is not about point scoring or debating or, I mean, look, it does elevate one candidate above the others because one candidate is infinitely better than the others. And of course, we can't be delusional or silly about that, but it is a fact. This is a fact. There's a book that folks can read that came out in 2000. Some of the examples are obviously dated, but it was laid out. Collapse, the betrayal of global public health. It's right there. And it's a global problem. And we see the places that, you know, and places like South Korea and so on have had an effective response. It's because they have a serious public health commitment. Now, this clip, and these clips are going to be, you know, there's a gallows humor in it. But this is Kevin McCarthy. Sorry. Yeah. This is Kevin McCarthy, House Republican leader. And there is a dearth of testing kits. There's a lot of misinformation about this too. And a lot of people, no doubt, are not getting tested because they're terrified of the medical bill. And there was also something I think Sam tweeted out yesterday showing that in Seattle, if you have insurance, I'm ballparking and I should have pulled it, but basically if you have insurance, it's a couple $100 or maybe $500. If you don't, it's over $1,000. $1,500. Because this is, again, it is utterly immoral.
It's a society run by criminal rackets.
It's a society run by criminal rackets, and anybody who has bad-mouthed or propagandized against Medicare for All is complicit in this.
Yes.
And this is an example, though, of when you're actually in a crisis. And it would be immature. Of course, capitalism can do plenty of things. Capitalism can generate gadgets. Capitalism can create markets. Capitalism can do a lot. It cannot respond. And we know historically, it simply cannot. It is not capable. It does not have an incentive structure to respond to a crisis like this. So what you're about to see from Kevin McCarthy is cult thinking, wedded to obviously system-wide massive corruption at an elemental level that is getting people killed.
You You're hearing from your members frustration that there are no testing kits. I mean, Congress doesn't have any testing kits. What's going on in this? Do you have anything else?
There are testing kits out there. There are people who have been tested. Congress doesn't get in any forward in the front of the line, as we talked to the doctor today. I was just talking to one American company out there that is just on the verge of being able to have the test ready in the next short time. They're making sure that it's done correctly, that you could have a test back in 8 minutes. So, I mean, this is the ingenuity of this country. It's not just government's going to be able to solve it. We have such bright minds in the private sector as well. We want to harness that. We want to create the synergy. And that's what's going to get us to the point where we're going to have a vaccine for this.
This is a cult. This is a cult. And to be very clear, I'll tell you with regards to the idea of voting for Joe Biden in a swing state, I think this should be a clarifying reminder that harm reduction is real. And who has the reins in a crisis is real. And to ignore that and not factor that into your decision is ridiculous. And conversely, on the other hand, anybody that is saying that they will not support Medicare for all is complicit in this. And Joe Biden's career is complicit in this. Now, I hope people can see the duality of that comment, because both of those things are true. And both of those things are inescapable. That's how horrible a situation we're in. It would be insane and immature to not see the distinction. And it would also be insane and immature to be like, oh, well, they have a different way of getting there. Or I don't know if we can do all that. We need to do these things. If you want to continue the human prospect, we need to do these things. Yes, it's the right thing to do ethically. Yes, it's a better policy. All of these things. But if we don't start getting stuff like single-payer healthcare, or some actual legitimate international and national coordination mechanisms on stuff like this, we are in for this becoming the normal. And that's all I got to say. I mean,
and not just Medicare for all in one country, right? Because we are all in this together now. We are globally linked, and we are only as safe and as healthy, not just as the lowest person in our own society, but in the whole world. So I think looking to the future, it's a very illustrative example of why people in this country should care about what happens to people around the world.
What I find so dystopian is the language that's used. Like, we have a vendor that's going to have a new test available, right? Or a supplier. I just imagine, like, oh yeah, we have a vendor that's going to get water to you. We can't tell you which vendor this is. Just the arm's length, like, who's actually accountable here, right? Like, this is presented as if it's like, look at this dynamism we have, but really it's like, we're not actually responsible for this. We have these companies that we're going to say, like, they're going to get your back, but if they don't, it's not on our fault. It's the vendors that let us down, the vendors that we won't even specify the name of. Nobody is actually responsible for any of this. And I mean, that's by design.
And it's a bureaucratized, hyper-modern version, though, of a similar logic to, I remember, okay, why can't this Pakistani village get clean water, right? The money was allocated, the technology's there. Oh, because a local politician and business network is controlling the supplies and using it to reward or punish people. And that happens in every country in the world. And now we're seeing, again, it's not exactly the same thing, but it's analog. It's a more bureaucratized version. Some people can die, some people, and very specifically, look at it. I mean, the rich can be okay, the poor can die. That is a punishment reward system with a public health crisis.
And for propaganda purposes, if they die in a socialized medicine country, we'll count that against the country. But you suckers that died in America because the vendor didn't come through with the test fast enough.
Yeah, no kidding. And again,
self-sufficiency.
And I'm seeing plenty of empty store shelves. I thought that only happened in Venezuela.